Good evening, guys. Welcome to the Tactics of Trav YouTube channel where I'm teaching you how to play chess for free. And in the first lesson, we taught how to open the game as white with e4, and black to start out is going to respond with e5. This is the most basic, but also one of the best openings that you could possibly learn to start chess with. So in the next move, second move, knight f3. And so the knights move in an L shape. They go up 2 and over 1, or they go over 1 and down 2, and they move in a capital letter L shape. So you'll get more of a feel for that. They're the only piece that can jump over pieces. It's attacking black's e5 pawn. Black has to do something about that, so they respond knight c6 to defend the pawn, and because of the point values, which we learned about in the first lesson, white will not take this. They will not take this pawn because we'll take it back, and then they're not going to give up a 3-point piece for a 1-point pawn. So white will respond, or what we should first start out with is the Italian game opening. Bishop moves to c4, attacking black's weakest starting point pawn, which is the f7 pawn, and black responds with the exact same, bishop to c5. White can move d3 here, knight c3, and we also worked and talked about castling. So let's just castle to show that this is castling. It's a special move. One thing I wanted to make clear from the first video is white can only castle once the knight and the bishop have moved, and once the rook or king has moved, they can't castle. So you can't move your king and then move it back and then castle later. It has to be an unmoved piece earlier in the game. And black would respond knight f6, and let's say that white decides to go d3 here, black castles kingside here. So what I wanted to show you guys next was some opening plans, and one of the most important things in chess, after keeping your king safe by castling most of the time and developing your pieces, is trying to control the center. That's one of the first things you want to do, and that's one of your plans, because in this game, if you control the center, you control the game. So you can attack on the sides, and that's okay. And there are opening systems devised to attack down the flanks, is what we call them. But if you control the center, it's a lot better, because the more space you control and the more center dominance you have, the better your pieces are going to move around and be fluid. So if white moves, say, knight c3 here, developing a piece, he's also controlling the d5 square, or helping to aiming to control this square, because you have white's bishop, now the knight, and this pawn, which attacks diagonally. It's the only piece that attacks differently than how it moves. The pawn attacks diagonally and controls the square as well. So you have 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking the d5 square, and because black is trying to control the center too, they're not going to move d5 here, because there's only 1, 2 defenders of the d5 square. So in this move, the reason this would be a bad move is because white could respond with e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and because the queen is worth 10 points, we're not going to take back on d5, right? Because we're not going to lose our queen for a bishop. This entire exchange, like let's say you were to do that, queen takes d5, well, white's going to take bishop takes d5, winning the exchange. So when you have pieces taking back and forth like that, we call that an exchange. So you always want to aim to win the exchange, not lose the exchange. And so when you look at the point values of these pieces, guys, we just, in that exchange there, which would have been bad for black, that's 1 plus 3 plus 10. So that's 14 points that black would have lost for 4 points. So it's not a good exchange. So if we go back in time here, black should never have moved d5. So because of that, and knowing that you're going to lose the exchange, black and you, if you're playing black, should not be pushing d5. You're going to push, say, maybe d6, which is going to open the scope for your bishop to go this way. You could go here or here or here. What black's bishop would not want to do is it would not want to move here, because then the pawn could take it, You could go here, which is a good move, and this is called a pin, and we'll get into tactics in lesson 3. And you wouldn't want to go here because then white's pawn could take it this way, and we don't want to lose our bishop for nothing. So that would be the plan of maybe moving d6 is developing the light squared bishop. So with that aside, guys, and understanding center control, because that's going to be your next steps. You're going to want to keep your king or get your king castled, number 1. Develop your pieces, number 2, but that's also kind of number 1 because you want to develop your pieces in addition to castling, so that's kind of part of it. And then 3, you want to control the center. So with those rules in mind, what I wanted to go through next was rules and checkmating the king. So the whole point of this game, guys, is to checkmate and kill the other person's king, right? So we got to know how to do that. You got to know how to kill the other person's king. And so one of my biggest frustrations, like when I used to do jiu-jitsu and MMA, was that they never showed you, like in the first couple classes, like how to do a submission. So you'd be kind of rolling around like a limp fish with somebody who's a blue belt or a purple belt who's just salivating to tap you out, and you have no idea how to do anything. So I'm going to teach you how to checkmate black's king, so you at least have a move. This would be kind of like your Americana or like your Kimura or armbar, just something so you know what to do. So at the end of the game, when all the pieces get traded down, which is how most games go in chess, you're going to be left in a situation where you got to checkmate the king. So this is a very basic checkmate, the king and queen checkmate. So the queen, remember the queen moves like this, and she also moves diagonally. So the rules of the game are that the other person's king can never move into check, ever. And once it's in check, the other person says check. Unless you're in a tournament game, then you don't say anything. So you don't have to say check in the tournament game. But a person cannot make another move until they get out of check and safeguard their king, and they cannot move into check. So black, if it was black's move, could not move here, could not move here, 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 but they can move here, here, because the king moves in one space in any direction. So if it was black's move, let's say he goes here. Well, then white, knowing how the queen and king move, have to work together to orchestrate a checkmate. So white would go something like this to cut off this file. This is called a file. This is the C file for C. And when the numbers here on the sides are called ranks. So this is the 8th rank, 7th rank, 6th rank, 5th, 4th, down all the way down to 1. Now black has to move. So I move, you move, right? So now this guy has to go here, and black, or white rather, has to bring their king in at some point. So let's say white goes here, and now it's white's turn to move. So maybe they go here, and maybe white checks them with this check. Now check means that the king is in danger of being killed, but in this case, the black king cannot move into check, correct? So he can't kill the queen, because if he were to kill the queen, the white king is going to kill the king. So because of that, he cannot take the queen. So he's in a situation where he's in check and he can't move. And when you're in a situation, well, he can move in this case. So let's say he goes here, white's going to go here, cuts off these squares and this square. Black's king's going to go here, white's going to go here, black is going to go here, and then we don't want to stalemate the king, which would lead to a draw. So maybe white goes here, black goes here, and then white would checkmate with this. This would be checkmate, or this, which means you're in check, but your king can't move. And when you're in a situation where you're in check, but your king can't move, you're in checkmate. Another person would say checkmate in a casual game, or in a tournament game, they just wouldn't say anything. You'd shake hands, and that would be the end of the game. So that's a basic king and queen checkmate. Let's go to the second, well, actually the most common one, which is king and rook. So I'm going to teach you how to checkmate with a king and rook. This might be a little bit too advanced for lesson number 2, but you need to learn this. And so let's just rip off the Band-Aid and do it now. I'm just going to put these pieces in random squares like this. And let's say my black king is here. Now you're playing white. So what you want to do with a king and rook checkmate against the other king is you want to create a box. So what you're going to do, and you want to control with your king in such a way where he can't move into check. So there's a name for that. It's called the opposition, but it's a fancy word. Let's just show you how to do it. here, and let's say black goes here, we're going to create a box. So we're going to go back here, and maybe black decides to go here. Well, this would be what's called opposition, with one space between the kings, and then you have a face-off, essentially. So neither king can move into this area. My king can't move in there as either. So it's white's move. White would do something like this, say check, and because the black king can't move on e5, d5, or c5, and it also now can't be anywhere on the 6th rank, which is right here, it's going to have to move back either here, here, or here. So let's say black wants to be more aggressive and attack white's rook because he's being attacked, and that's just what he wants to do. Well, then white could go here, which would defend the rook. And so now black can't kill the rook, or else white's king would kill the king. And we're also condensing the box. So let's say black goes here. Now white would want to move his rook here. And that's going to create a box threat where it's not going to be, the king can't go anywhere on the 6th rank, and it can't go on c7 or c8. And black has to move. So they can't just elect not to move and say, no, white, it's your turn to move. I don't want to move. Can't do that. So black would go maybe something like this, and we would make the box tighter again and move our rook over to d6, which would constrict more squares from black. And so you're using the fact that the king has to move against them. So now black goes, oh, I can't go to d7, I can't go to d8, I can't go anywhere on the 6th rank, I can't kill your rook because my king will get killed. Then I guess I'll move here. Well, now white is not going to move his rook to e6 to try to constrict the box because his rook's not defended. Our rook would not be defended on e6. So we're going to move our king into the game now with king d5, and it's black's move again. So maybe they come back here, and we don't want to constrict the king and go rook to e6 with the box that way, because now the king would flush out this way. So we don't want to move here. This would be a mistake, because then black can run this way and we just lose a bunch of time. What we want to do is move our king into the opposition and make it black's turn again. So now black could say, he didn't push me this way, so I'm going to go this way. Well, now we want to constrict the box. We make the box smaller. So now we're going to move the rook here, and that's going to cut off the e7 square, the e8 square, and the 6th rank again. So black moves maybe here. Well, now we can constrict the box. Now I can move it here. Black's going to have to move again, so he goes maybe here, and now we're going to want to move our king here. Maybe black goes here. We move here. The whole point of this, guys, is we're going to make that box smaller and smaller until we get it so small that he can't move anymore, and then we checkmate him without stalemating him. So we'll get into that too. So now black's going to go here, and I'm going to go here. Now the king can only go here. So he's just going to sit here and go move like this until I checkmate him. So let's say he goes here, I move here, king g8, king g6, and king h8, and now this would be checkmate. So the king is in check, and he cannot move here or here because my king would kill his king. So that's a king and rook checkmate. It's one of the most common. It's maybe a little early to show you that, but I wanted to show it to you because it's something you're going to have to learn. You're going to get into more king and rook in games than any others, and this is really important to know that. One thing to note too, so king and rook and king and queen are going to be the most common you'll ever have. You cannot checkmate with a king and a knight versus a king. There's just not enough firepower. You can checkmate with a bishop and a knight, but it's very advanced, and it takes about 30 moves. So, and that's assuming that black knows what they're doing and knows how to defend it, but do not worry about that yet. You can defend, or you can checkmate with 2 bishops against and a king versus a king, which is a lot easier than a bishop and a knight, but that's a process as well that you'll learn a lot later. And another type of checkmate I want to go through right now are 2 rooks versus a king. So you'll get this sometimes where, like, let's say my king is here, I'm just making this up, and this king's here. you'll get checkmates that are like this, where you're going to check him like this. He's going to come here. Now, in this case, he's attacking my rook, and I can't just move this rook down or he'll kill this rook. Like, I can't go here because he would kill this rook. So maybe I would move here with the same effect. This is called an accordion mate. So what that means is my rook cuts off the entire sixth rank. So black can't go here or here or here. And he can go here, in which case I would probably bring my rook that's on a5 over to g5. So just to make it easy, because if I go rook to a7 with check, he can just kill my rook, so it won't work. But this is what an accordion mate is. You go here, and now my rooks are too far away to be threatened by his king, so he's going to run this way. I'm going to check like this, and you'll notice I've cut off the entire sixth rank and the entire seventh rank. So now he has to come to, say, d8 or c8 or b8. So let's say he decides to go to d8 to get a little closer to my rooks. This would be a checkmate. So it's in check from this. He's in check from the rook that's on h8, and he cannot move anywhere on the seventh rank or anywhere on the eighth rank. So this is called an accordion mate. There's lots of different types of mates, guys. We'll go through them in time, but it's just really important to know the basic ones. This is a common one. The king and rook is a common one. The king and queen is a common one. But there's so many mates, guys. Like, there's just so many. I can't go through all of them. But that will give you some knowledge of what to do when you get into an end game and how to kill the other person's king. Because again, I go back to like my jiu-jitsu classes and back when I first started, and I was like, man, I don't know how to do anything. Like, I don't know any moves. He's doing everything he wants to do, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And so at least having some moves and something to checkmate the other guy with is something that can give you some confidence. Because still at this stage, you want to keep playing games on chess.com or leechess.org or wherever you want to play, to be able to just get a feel for the game. And you'll learn a lot on those platforms too, just playing. So guys, watch this next video on the chess lesson number 3, which is coming out, and we're going to go over more of the opening and middle game plans, and I'm going to start introducing you to tactics. So we'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.